Hello everyone, it's me, Ethan, that there Turbo Owl, on the 10th attempt at recording this video. And if I don't get it this time, this video ain't going out, so, there we are. Today, I'm just here with some more of the rambling guide to Vampire the Masquerade 20th Anniversary Edition, this time to discuss Clan Nosferatu. Can I get a good angle on that? Clan Nosferatu. And yes, of course, I have my core rules for V20 up here. Basically, just to remind myself that the Nosferatu have potence. I always forget they have Animalism and Obfuscate. I remember that. It's that fucking third one that I always forget. But before we get into the actual clan video, I just want to quickly restate something that I think is kind of important. Because I've had some people get, like, kind of annoyed with me over what is, at least as far as I can see, a misunderstanding in regards to my intent with these videos. I had a couple of people disagree with me politely, kind of express their annoyance politely, and I had one guy be an absolute smug cunt piece of shit. But thankfully, he's almost certainly not going to see this. Because why would he? If he's going to be that much of a smug cunt about one video, why would he keep watching? But if you're watching, hi, I guess. I just want to make one thing absolutely clear. And that is that these videos are not meant to be prescriptive. These videos are in no way meant to be me saying, this is how you should run Vampire. This is absolutely, you know, what the law is. This is the correct way to run Vampire. What these videos are is effectively me talking about the way I interpret and run Vampire for my group. That's all this is. You know, when I say the thing that seemed to annoy people was the video about certain clans and bloodlines that I don't think are a particularly good idea to let players play them. That video is not meant to be me saying you should never let players play these, and if you do, you're wrong and bad. It's me saying, I prefer to not let players use these because I think it presents difficulties. That's all it is. If you want, you know, and I'm not going to get angry at people who disagree with that. I mean, I contradict myself on that one because one of the clans I name as a clan I don't really think players are meant to be using is the Chemise, and they are one of my favourite clans to play as. To the point, and one of the videos on this channel is literally a big chunk of it, if not the entire video, I can't quite remember if it was one or the other, is dedicated to me talking about how one of the most fun tabletop experiences I've ever had was me playing as a flesh-crafting Chemise. So please don't take these videos as me insisting that you run your games how I run mine, or you're wrong, or that you have to interpret, you know, whatever law I'm talking about the way I interpret it, or you're wrong. It's me talking about the version of the World of Darkness, the version of the Vampire the Masquerade setting that lives in my head from the things I've read, and how I prefer to run it for my group, for my games. That's all. That's it. And with that out of the way, because that is genuinely the most succinct I've managed to make that so far, and I'm not going to lie, a little bit proud of myself for managing to get that in under 5 minutes, because I ramble a lot. We are going to talk about the Nosferatu, and also on that note, I'm going to be trying to make these videos a bit shorter so I can get through them a bit quicker, so it doesn't take me months to get around to making another vampire video. Should it take me months? Am I putting work into it? No, I'm just lazy. But if it's like a 15-minute video, it's a lot easier for me to sit down and record it. So, we're going to be talking about Clan Nosferatu today. So, broad strokes, what are the Nosferatu? Well, in terms of the politics, the Nosferatu are a member of the Camarilla. They are one of the 13 primary clans. I think it's 13, isn't it? Yeah, 13 primary clans in the modern Knights. They are officially one of the members of the Camarilla. They are considered one of the low clans, one of the non-noble clans, alongside the Malkavians and the Gangrel and the Bruja. And they are hideous freaks. As the name implies, the Nosferatu are heavily inspired by the aesthetics of the German expressionist film of the same name, and as such, the Nosferatu are almost universally hideous, pointed-eared, largely hairless, rat monster freaks, Though this did change quite dramatically in V5. I think in V5 they look more human, but they're still hideous. In V20 they are explicitly, obviously inhuman creatures. I've just got it right here immediately. Their weakness is, as you might expect from the description, that they have an appearance score of 0 and can never improve it, and unless they have a pretty specific merit, they are effectively a walking masquerade breach, because they are obviously inhuman, just to look at them. The disciplines that they have access to, as I mentioned earlier, is Animalism, Obfuscate, and Potence. They are not one of the clans who has their own unique discipline, although arguably, while they do share the discipline of Obfuscate with various other clans, there are basically no other clans that can do it quite like them. In terms of siring patterns, the Nosferatu tend to be broadly pragmatic. They will tend to sire people who have the kind of skill set I think would be useful. Burglars, spies, journalists to a degree, hackers. There's quite a large number of hackers within the Nosferatu. However, there is also a subset of Nosferatu referred to as Cleopatras, which I have seen described in 2 different ways, which makes me think that it's one term being used to describe 2 different groups. And the Cleopatras are what I would call spite sirings. Because another thing that is very prominent among the Nosferatu is that they are a somewhat spiteful species of kindred. The Cleopatras, just to mention it now, are effectively, they are largely Nosferatu who were in life beautiful, handsome, charismatic, and vain. And their siring is effectively a kind of spiteful punishment from the Nosferatu to steal away their beauty and their looks, turn them into monsters like them, and kind of drag them down into the muck. In terms of their interactions with the other clans within the Camarilla, the Nosferatu are considered something of a necessary evil, in that they are largely disrespected. If there was a clan that could be the lowest of the low clans, it would be the Nosferatu. I mean, I think literally in this book, I think it mentions... Does it have nicknames? Yeah, it mentions their nickname is sewer rats. The other clans largely see them as kind of dirty, untrustworthy sneaks. They have a particular animosity with the Toreador, in fact, because, well, frankly, do I need to explain why the Nosferatu and the Toreador don't like each other? I don't think there could be a more obvious natural enemy than the vampires obsessed with beauty and the vampires for whom beauty is a physical impossibility. The Nosferatu, functionally in the Camarilla, despite their low status, their hideous appearances and such, they can be actually one of the most important aspects to the functioning of the Camarilla, because they are the eyes and ears of the Camarilla. Because while they are, as said, sewer rats, while they are the lowest of the low, and while they cannot be seen, they tend to have the skills and willingness to be to be unseen in places where they shouldn't necessarily be. As such, in almost any place within a city that has a substantial Nosferatu population, no kindred can ever necessarily be entirely certain that they are going unobserved. Not only because the Nosferatu have the ability to move unseen and unheard through the city, both through the use of their obfuscate, moving among the people above ground, just simply the eyes of the populace who would scream in horror if they could see them, just kind of washing over them without even noticing their presence. But they also tend to control the entire sewer system, or large chunks of the sewer systems underneath the cities, meaning that they don't even need to use their obfuscate to move unseen, because they are moving beneath your feet every night. They also, not just that, they tend to be among the most modern of the clans in terms of keeping up with technology, because as time has passed, this role they have as information brokers has required them to stay ahead of the curve to make sure that they essentially can surveil as much as possible. They are only really tolerated because of the incredible value they offer to the Camarilla, and as such, having access to high tech and the information that comes with that is of vital importance to them. As I mentioned earlier, it's why they tend to sire quite a lot of hackers. They also established the essentially the vampire internet at one point, referred to as the Shreknet. If memory serves, and I am a bit hazy on this, especially because Shreknet, a lot of stuff happened that I wasn't aware of with Shreknet that got mentioned in I only literally read multiple books, and then it turns out there's just an entire section in Anarchs Unbound that just talks about a bunch of shit that happened with Shreknet that I wasn't aware of. But Shreknet was originally essentially a kind of secret dark web accessible only to the Nosferatu. And that's kind of how I choose to run it in my games, though it's not necessarily the state of it in the modern Knights. But the Shreknet was originally this secretive communication network online, a secret dark web known only to the Nosferatu, named, of course, after the actor Max Schreck, who played Count Orlok in the eponymous movie, or the titular movie, because I'm not entirely confident I used eponymous correctly. Which allowed them to communicate with each other at speeds and in secrecy unknown to the other clans, until, through varying circumstances, Shreknet ended up being gradually opened up to other clans, which I believe led to one of the things that set off the large kind of status quo change between V20 and V5. If memory serves, one of the big changes going into V5, I believe possibly actually one of the things that caused the Second Inquisition in V5, the Catholic churches, or just the kind of broad attempt, or the broad effort for mortals to mobilize against the kindred, was actually that someone managed to break into Shreknet and find the locations of various kindred, and just find a lot of evidence that vampires exist, and find evidence of their conspiracies, because it was just on the internet, just kind of hidden away in various little dark web places. Got breached and fucked up the Camarilla, but good that happened. One of the reasons that the Camarilla is a lot weaker than in V5 than it was in V20. They are also kind of a peculiar one in that the Nosferatu are one of the clans that I would describe as, when it comes to the clans, and the bloodlines to a lesser extent, but when it comes to the clans, there is a spectrum in terms of how much any of the clans is directly involved with, I want to call it the jihad, but the jihad is very broad, the intersect conflict. The conflict between the Anarchs, the Sabbat, and the Camarilla. On one end of this, you have, for example, the Ventru, who are the Ventru and, say for the Sabbat, the Chemise, who are so wholly wrapped up in this sect conflict, as, you know, or at least the main body of the clan is so wholly wrapped up in this sect conflict, that it's almost hard, it can be difficult to fully kind of extract them from it. You know, the Chemise are, in a lot of ways, kind of the spiritual heart of the Sabbat, and the Ventru, in a lot of ways, basically are the Camarilla. You know, they are the far extreme. And then on the other end, ignoring, you know, on the very other far end, you have the Independents, the Setites, the Giovanni, the Assamites, who have no presence in this conflict. The Nosferatu are in an odd position because they are not an independent group. They are explicitly, officially Camarilla, but they are about as independent from the Camarilla as you can get without not being members of the Camarilla. Which is to say that while they pay fealty to the Camarilla, while they, you know, they nod their heads and they agree to the laws, it is very difficult to actually tell if the Nosferatu are loyal, for the simple reason that their havens, or their warrens, as they are often described, are essentially, if not by the letter of the law, by the spirit of the law, by the function of the law, outside of Camarilla jurisdiction, because the warrens are elaborate, confusing and difficult to navigate for anyone other than the clan, which means, and typically, unlike most vampires, where even clans that do work together, most the individual members of that clan in a city will maintain their own havens. They will live separately. You know, they work together towards a common goal, but they're not exactly a commune. The Warrens tend to essentially be a colony, where maybe not necessarily most, but a large concentration of the city's Nosferatu population will live in one place, live and function in one place. And because the only people who are really allowed access to the Warrens on any kind of regular basis are the Nosferatu, there's no way of determining if, say, the Warrens are only home to the Camarilla-aligned Nosferatu. And it is a not exactly unheard of occurrence for there to just be one Warren in a city, just one big Warren that contains the Anarch-sympathetic Nosferatu, the Sabbat-sympathetic Nosferatu, and the Camarilla Nosferatu, with the Nosferatu effectively acting as almost like a sect unto themselves, existing beneath the city, and ensuring their own survival by playing the information they have on each of the sects against each other. So if you were to go to a Nosferatu informant and trade him a favour, you know, you're a member of the Camarilla, and trade him a favour, say you need to know the location of a pack priest, some La Sombra pack priest, maybe he's been raiding your territory and you need to know where his pack stays, where they bed down, where their haven is. You have no way of knowing it when that Nosferatu returns to you with the address. You have no way of knowing whether or not that Nosferatu actually nose to the grindstone investigated and did, you know, due diligence to investigate that, find out for himself, or if he just went down to, you know, the Warrens, found Jim, old leather Jim, who is a Sabbat Nosferatu, who owed him one, and just happened to ask him if he knows where he is. Which that is entirely possible, which is something I quite like about the Nosferatu, that there is this element of them that is very much I don't know, just very much they're a sect unto themselves to a degree. You know, I find that interesting that they are this underclass who, rather than meekly accepting their role as an underclass, and rather than going the Anarch route of kind of directly opposing the Camarilla or the Sabbat who have made them an underclass, they instead are playing the system. They're just playing it in their own way, which I find I just find that quite fun. It's one of the things I like about the Nosferatu. And as I said, they do tend towards being relatively spiteful. It is also the case that compared to a lot of other clans, the Nosferatu can be quite meritocratic and quite pragmatic regarding the advancement and the importance of the vampires within their clan. They place a lot less of an emphasis on age and kind of raw power than, say, the Toreador or the Ventru do, for the simple reason that they understand the importance that cunning and cleverness have over the kind of innate magical power of age. They understand better than most that the strongest, most mystically empowered elder can be brought down by a handful of cunning young vampires, cunning not fledglings, neonates, who just happen to have a bit of an edge in terms of understanding technology, and a bit of an edge in terms of understanding the modern world, which strangely means that they are kind of internally contradicting their own nature, in that their horrific appearance makes them unable to fully interact with the world, but they are somehow some of the vampires who seem to be able to interact with the world the most effectively, because they don't let the world pass them by in the same way that other vampires have. They resist that stasis that a lot of other vampire clans fall into a lot more effectively. I don't know if I've really got anything else to say. I could go on to discuss other things. I could talk about their specific merits and the things I find interesting about them. For example, they have one of my favourite merits, actually, in, I believe it's in Law of the Clans, a merit which means that allows Obfuscate to transfer specifically to cameras so that they can avoid appearing on cameras. I'm just going to... I could also mention, I can't remember the name of them. Oh, that's very annoying. You know what? I know how to solve this. Baba Yaga VTM, because she was one of these. I will Google Baba Yaga from VTM, because that's what she was. Okay. Hopefully I'm going to remember to put a cut here when I edit this. I just Googled it, because I was like, why isn't it in the book? I think it's because this is only mentioned in Dark Ages. That's probably why it's not in this book. The Nosferatu do also have a peculiar bloodline referred to as, I'm not 100% of the pronunciation here, the Niktuku, which are, well, it's not 100% clear whether or not they are a Nosferatu bloodline or something else, but it's generally believed the Nosferatu bloodline, and given the fact that I think like some of the various characters who have been related to it have alternated in editions about whether or not they were Niktuku, or Nosferatu. It's pretty clear, especially given the fact that, yep, that is his name. I thought that was his name. One of the listed possible founders of the bloodline is Absimiliard, which is the name of the Nosferatu antediluvian. They are an incredibly rare bloodline. There's very few of them. The most notable member of that bloodline, other than Absimiliard, who, you know, is the Nosferatu antediluvian, would be Baba Yaga, the creature of, or the figure of Russian or Slavic folklore, who in the lore of Vampire the Masquerade is responsible for essentially Russia and various other kind of not Baltic, you know, kind of Eastern European states. Oh god, where's the focus gone? There we go. Who is responsible for various Eastern European states being essentially uninhabited by kindred other than those that work for Baba Yaga. The Nikutu are the Niktuk. Fuck, Niktuku. Fuck, wait. Niktuku. The Niktuku are a peculiar bloodline in that, if I recall correctly, I believe they have a similar weakness. They have a similar weakness to the Nosferatu, but a more aggressive one, in that they can only I believe they can only drain blood, or they can only gain sustenance from kindred blood. Yep, they can only drain... they can only gain sustenance from other kindred, which means they effectively have Methuselah's thirst. And as they age, they become hideous. They essentially start out looking human, but as time passes, they become, for lack of a better, more Nosferatu-like in their appearance. And they are effectively the boogeymen of the Nosferatu. They are a bloodline whose entire reason to exist is to hunt down and kill any Nosferatu they find. That is all they are for. And it is because, largely believed to be because, they are the creation of, as mentioned, Absimiliard, the antediluvian four-clan Nosferatu, and the Nosferatu antediluvian truly despises his children. He hates them to a ludicrous level, to the point at which, if there is even the slightest hint of that a Niktuku, I had to check again to make sure I pronounced it correctly, a Niktuku is operating in a city with a Nosferatu population, it is entirely likely that if the Nosferatu get wind of this, they may just disappear. They may flee the city entirely, because the Niktuku are very powerful, very dangerous, and unflinchingly hostile to the Nosferatu. However, they are also so incredibly rare that they are almost unheard of. In fact, I believe off the top of my head, as I said, the only Niktuku I know of, I don't really think I can say Absimiliard, but is Baba Yaga, and I think she, like, some of her her childer. But Baba Yaga's dead, and I think almost very few others have ever actually been seen. As I said, very rare, very dangerous. The Nosferatu hate them. It would be kind of weird for me to not mention them in a video about the Nosferatu. But yeah, in summary, ugly, spiteful, technologically forward-thinking, excellent spies. Yeah, excellent spies. Pretty good assassins. Not as good at assassination as the Assamites, but pretty good assassins. And the information brokers of the Jihad, not just the Camarilla, of the Jihad. Because they are very mercenary and will trade their information to basically anyone. Though officially, on the record, their clan works for the Camarilla, even though the Camarilla doesn't particularly like them. Okay, so I think that's where this video is going to end there. As I feared, it has taken about half an hour to make. Well, it's taken actually a lot longer because I've had to start and stop a few times. I am going to try and cut out some of my hesitancies there. I'm not going to say what the next video will be, and I'm not going to say when it will be, because I don't know. But I will also say, actually quickly, that my Skelwitch game, my Vampire the Masquerade game, is going relatively well. Unfortunately, I had a player drop out. Largely because he like removed I had an argument with him over this because the player didn't like the change I made to the Diablerie rules, but he played it, he played it originally, and then he was originally planning on playing a character who was very big into Diablerie, that was his entire goal, and he'd built his character around that. And then when I changed the Diablerie rules so they're a bit more risky, he decided he didn't want to risk that. So he removed that element of his character, didn't give him any other kind of motivation, so he just kind of didn't have any reason to be doing anything, and then got incredibly bored, and now blames the game Vampire the Masquerade. Even though we all warned him that by removing his character's primary motivation, and not replacing it with anything, he was going to have a very bad time with the game. He insisted that wouldn't be a problem, and then it was a problem, but he refuses to acknowledge that that sudden, wild change in his character might have affected his enjoyment of the game, because he kind of gave up on the character before the campaign began. But for the rest of us, for the other players who are still in the game, it's going very well. They are, getting wrapped up in vampire politics. They're slowly getting wrapped up, and I had one of the players is actually brand new. It wasn't even one of the players who was in my original The Colony game. He is finally starting to realize the nature of the kindred economy, which is essentially just kind of the kindred economy is very much the kind of long-winded game of not pass the parcel. I can't remember what it's called, like fetch quests, I guess, where it's like, I need to trade this for this, so I give you this, and then I get this, but in order to get the thing that I want to give you, I need to get this thing from someone else, but favors, essentially, he got a job from a Toreador, for a portrait. The portrait is owned by an anarch gangrel who doesn't like the Toreador. He goes to the gangrel, and he doesn't know where the gangrel is. He goes to a Nosferatu informant, and he trades a favor he has and a favor that he's generating, that he will owe the Nosferatu for the information. He then gets the information, goes to find the gangrel, speaks to the gangrel. The gangrel has the painting, but he wants to know what he'll give him. And so this character is Giovanni, and the gangrel finds out it's Giovanni and says, hey, I want some janitor zombies. So he goes, okay, I'll get you some janitor zombies. So now he has to go back to the Giovanni because he can't make janitor zombies because he specializes in ghosts. So he needs to go get in debt to another member of the Giovanni who is going to give him the janitor zombies in exchange for a favor, but at any point any of these favors could get called in. And such is the vampire economy. And I'm very glad that the party and the players, this player specifically, given that this is kind of this is the aspect of the game he wanted to be interacting with, that they're finally starting to get caught up in this web of debts and favors and loyalties to different factions. It's starting to get very exciting. I'm very much looking forward to it. I think the game's going well, with the players who didn't remove their character's entire motivation 2 days before the campaign began, and then got mad when the character didn't have a motivation and they didn't have any fun. Oh boy. But yeah, I don't know what the next video will be. I do keep meaning to make a video talking about Skelwich, but it would be effectively just kind of going over details of the city, because I don't think I've made a full video going over the details of the various factions and characters of the city overall and what the broad plot lines are that I've introduced, so I may do that. I may also do more clan stuff, because I'm back to writing. The way my brain works is I have, you know, one hyperfixation at a time, and I obsess about that and can think of nothing else for an extended period, and that's when I tend to get a lot of this done, and Vampire is one of those things that I get briefly obsessed with it, or I get obsessed with it for a while, but then it's hard for me to care, which is one of the reasons why there's these big gaps between these videos, because my brain needs to be kind of running on Vampire. I need to be, you know, running on Vampire in my head in order to make these videos. But I'm, you know, I'm back to writing. I'm back to running. So, okay. Alright. As I say, hope you enjoyed the video. Yeah, see you whenever I make the next one. Bye.